Hi, everybody. We are so happy to be with you here in New Orleans at Horizons. And we are very well aware of the fact that we're between you and drinks. So we've promised ourselves we're going to keep it lively here and really try to make sure that this is a good and substantial conversation. So thank you so much for your time. What we're going to be really drilling into today in our conversation is, look, I mean, all of us know it has been a disruptive couple of years, to say the least. I'm sure on a personal level, within your families, your communities, and across all sectors. And in moments of incredible disruption, you also see incredible innovations, right? That is one upside to a time that has had a whole lot of downsides. We've seen a lot of innovations, in particular, coming out of the private sector, and we wanted to turn today's conversation toward some people who are either watching closely or living through some of those innovations and sort of seeing the good, bad, and the ugly of what that looks like. And we wanted to interrogate today which innovations, why are these happening? What's most promising specifically when it comes to equitable economic advancement for workers in the US? And what's going to stick around and what's just something that had its moment, but that we may not see last through the continued turbulence that we're seeing and that we're definitely going to be seeing in our economy. So that's what we're drilling into today is what's promising, what have we been seeing, and what do we want to hang on to and fight for? So I'm really thrilled to be digging into this conversation with the three of you, Ryan, Lydia, Monique, and we'll get off to the races with this. So the first thing that I want to dig into is in the last couple of years, from where you sit, if we look at private sector action, and we're specifically looking at outcomes that drive equitable economic advancement for learners and workers here in the US. Name an innovation for me that you feel particularly excited about, that you've had your eye on and you think looks real promising. And I'm going to start with you, Monique.
Great. I will definitely lean into the digital revolution around skilling. I think we have invested a lot of resourcing, a lot of time, and we're seeing just innovations pop up all over the globe that is really opening access for workers, particularly entry-level workers, to skill up, to earn new skills, to do so on various different platforms. I think the pandemic and the kind of expansion of technology in our homes has really presented an opportunity for workers to take advantage of these tools that didn't exist before, at least not to the level of ubiquity that we see today. And it's just fascinating to see the number of corporate partners that are taking advantage of that revolution to bring those tools in-house, to bring those tools integrated into their learning systems to make sure more workers have access to it. So I think that's really where I'm bullish.
Excellent, thank you. Lydia, how about you?
I'll do a +1 for Monique. We're certainly leaning into both the training and credentials for internal training for IBMers and what we do through our philanthropy externally and also what we do for our clients. But I think it's also for us a skills-first hiring approach. So for the US, we've eliminated a degree requirement for 50% of our US job postings, and that's helped us to diversify our talent pool, the applicants, and the hires. We've seen a big change there, and people have often asked me, well, great, so you eliminate it from the posting, what does it mean after that? We do management training for managers who are hiring, and we ask them about how they're writing the job description. Does it really require a degree or not? And then there are other steps that happen after that. I'm not going to say we have it perfect, but I think we're well along the way.
Thank you. Brian.
Yeah, it's hard to just choose one, but I'll do it. And I think if you think back what's happened, this groundswell, this energy, one of the things I wanted to highlight was Skill Up, and I know they're here, but let's break Skill Up down for a minute because it's innovation across a couple of margins that are really important. It's bottom up, it's a coalition, so it's recognition that none of us have the solution, that we're going to have to work together to find solutions to solve some of these problems. So it's a coalition of 60 plus organizations. And then I think the greatest innovation is it's focused on helping workers identify who they are, so their aptitudes, and then basing a pathway that will help them, will help them increase their mobility and their potential based on who they are. And I think that innovation is often skipped over in a lot of the solutions we're looking at. So I think that's the one I wanted to flag.
All right, appreciate that. So there's been a lot of conversation, and just coming out of the last set of speakers that we had around the role of the private sector and all of that. And I wanted to pause for a moment, and Monique, I'm going to turn this to you. I want to think a little bit about, there's a lot of players in driving a more inclusive economy. The private sector has a role to play. What is JPMorgan seeing as its role right now, coming out of a turbulent moment, heading into what many are describing as a turbulent moment, being in a turbulent moment? What do you see as your role in driving a more inclusive economy? And is there anything you feel particularly proud of in the last couple of years that you'd lift up as an example of JPMorgan's role?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is leading by example. And we really can't get to an equitable economy if we're not building partnerships and expanding those opportunities in communities where the talent exists. And so we've done a lot of work really digging in on how do we build direct talent relationships in cities like Chicago and Columbus and New York, so that those partnerships really can both build capacity, right? They know those communities. They know the folks who are looking for work. They know the skills. And so we've really partnered with them over the last few years. We originally kind of kicked it off with the work we were doing around second chances to really expand opportunity for individuals with criminal backgrounds to enter into the financial services sector. But I think we're going further than that, right? Because it's not just about making those connections, those bespoke connections, but really helping build the capacity of those organizations and investing in the capacity of those organizations, and probably most importantly, seeing them as a trusted partner to really provide the talent access that's really necessary. But I think the challenge that we're dealing with now is, we have a lot of conversations around kind of breaking glass ceilings, right? Really working on the sticky floor. And so I think that's where we're focusing a lot of our energies now, is how can we have these community conversations, how do we build more of them? How do we get into more communities? How do we build more partnerships and really do so at scale?
So I'm hearing a lot about partnership, and partnership is a massive theme, right? You're gonna hear a lot about it here at Horizons. And you've mentioned it, Ryan, you brought it up. Lydia, I know it's really key to what you do at IBM. Like, from your vantage point, what makes a partnership work? And maybe to your point, Monique, what makes it work at some level of scale so that we can start to really see more widespread impact? Let me pass that to Lydia real quick and get you started on that.
Sure. I think, a lot of the work that we're doing recently is both with universities, community colleges, and with training providers, nonprofit organizations. We do it because, as Monique said, they know the community better than we could ever know them. And if we want to reach people and we want to understand what they need and how they need support, we need to work through partnerships in order to do that, and we need to do that in order to get to scale. My skills build team is here, so I feel like I need to give them a shout out also. But it's important that we work through partnerships so that we reach people the way they need to be reached, not the way we want to reach them. And I think that's really important for us to understand. And I think in selecting partners, making sure you have shared goals. Because, if your content areas are not the areas that they focus on and there's a mismatch, it's not the right partner. Doesn't mean they're not doing great work, but I think if we are good and we're doing our job about finding the right match, then we really see change happening. If we try to sprinkle things like birdseed and just try to match with whoever will raise their hand, it's not going to work. So I think there's some great conversations about how we collaborate. I think that's part of the discussion, is making sure we're collaborating in a way that's strategic and makes sense for the people we want to serve, not just for us.
Ryan or Monique, anything you'd want to add to that?
I would just go back to this humility that we all need, this recognition that we can't solve it ourselves. I think we miss that a lot because we come up with a good idea and we think it's going to change the world. And by finding other organizations or individuals who share a common vision and have complementary capabilities that can add value to what we're trying to do, and then the diversity of perspectives you can get by the Catalyze Challenge is a great example of this, where IBM, a handful of others are getting together and we bring different things to the table, and then that local knowledge piece that Lydia nailed, that's critical. But coalitions, people are using the word movements, that's what's going to drive the kind of transformative change that we want to see, that we need to see in order to really help these people reach their full potential. And it won't happen without these types of partnerships.
And I mean, one thing I would add is to do that work where we're putting our worker learners first, right? Where we're listening to the perspectives that they bring. They can solve many of these problems. They can tell us about our work in some instances better than we know, right?
That's right.
And so I think there are so many different efforts that are growing now where the worker voice is central to that effort. And I think there are honestly complementary tools and technologies that are really putting the power in the hands of worker learners to make the best choices for themselves using labor market information and career navigation. We've recently partnered with Future Fit AI, which really provides that type of connectivity and navigation on both skills as well as opportunity. And those are more tools that we need to really make sure that it's workers who are determining the outcome here.
Love that.
It's huge.
Lydia, I want to turn a question to you here. You mentioned that half of the US jobs posted by IBM now are skills first, dropping the degree requirement. There's a mix of perspectives on how far we should go in becoming a skills-based economy, right? And some concerns that may be leading some potential learners and workers down a path where if we move into a recessionary environment, now they don't have a degree behind their name, right? Or something like that, which might give people an advantage potentially in a different kind of labor market. So I'm curious how you're experiencing this shift towards being a skills-first company on the inside. There's a lot of talk about how great it is, but can you point to any returns in these early days or even what you're tracking and looking to tell you if this is a successful move that truly merits being adopted sort of across the board?
Sure, and I think it's important for all of us to note that degrees have been part of the movement to the middle class, not just in America, but everywhere. We talk about first generation, and that shorthand is only referring to college, not home buying, not 401ks, nothing else, college. So I think for us to think that we're gonna change the narrative easily and flip to skills first without really making sure that's a solid, viable, long-term pathway, we need to do our part. We're definitely watching inside IBM to make sure people who come in as skills first hires have access to management training and opportunities for growth inside IBM along with everyone else. I believe that we've had a couple of executive promotions from skills first hires. Don't quote me on that because I've got to verify it, but it's something we are watching closely and we talk about it. I think if we're not watching it and we're not mindful of it and we're not building for it, it's not gonna happen. And I think it doesn't need to be skills or degrees. I think it needs to be some of both. People don't take a direct path from high school to college to work. Most people don't. They go to high school.
Especially now, right?
Especially now. They go to work for a while, they step out, they go to school for a while, they may get training at work. They need to be able to earn credentials that they can take to an academic institution, they get some credit for that, they continue to advance along their career journey, no matter where they are, and carry those credentials and that validation with them. And I think we need to build the system that makes that happen. And we need to lean on that system. We need to hire based on that system. We need to, we need to be in there at each part and it's not that everyone needs to work on every part, but we need to make sure that it exists and that it's working. And so I think that's where, that's what for me, the look ahead is where we need to go and what we need to think about building.
I'd love to hear all three of you project out on this. Is the skills first, sort of competency-based talent management approach a moment? Because we've seen it really catch fire in the last couple of years in our current economy and circumstances. Or is that going to be something that you project based on what we know now, and we're still learning a lot? Do you project that that's going to be business as usual for employers sometime down? We're in our see beyond state. Is it going to be 5-10 years from now the way business is done? Monique?
I mean, this may sound like a cop-out answer, but I mean, it's really up to us, right? I mean, it's so encouraging to hear the amount of conversation we're having today on skills-based hiring, right? And so I feel the sea change, right? I feel the coalition of the willing growing every time I listen to the next conversation on this topic. I think now it's the time to put that talk into action, and it's hard work. And so the reality is if we're all rolling up our sleeves right now to really start putting this action in place and changing practices and helping our talent acquisition teams kind of change their typical ways of kind of reviewing resumes and applications, and helping our hiring managers understand this intrinsically and then how to then take that understanding and put it into action, then it'll stick. But I think that's entirely dependent on how we spend our time once we leave this conference and all of the conferences to come that talk about this particular topic.
Lydia, what do you think?
I think it will stick. I 100% agree with Monique. It's incumbent on us to make it stick, and that's only if we build value on the skill side. If we don't build value that we recognize, we hire and promote based on it, it will not stick. It's, the work is hard, the answer is easy.
Right.
So I think that's, are we honoring credentials? Are we making hiring and promotion based on it? Are we building in the systems in the HR side that will make that happen? We have apprenticeships. We work to get those in place. We pay them well. We have ACE accreditation tied to many of them so that people who go through our apprenticeship programs and stay. If you decide to go back to school, you've got that in your pocket when you go. But, there's a lot of work getting each one of those accredited, and it takes, in some cases, 2 to 3 years to go through that process. We have a whole team of people working on it. We're also a big enough company to have a team of people working on it.
Yeah.
So I think, we work with the BRT members, we work with other coalitions, companies that are interested in seeing how we've done it. We are working with them on our frameworks and our policies and our processes so they can learn from us to do it. But we have to help each other to get there and make it stick.
Yeah, I think it's a special moment. I think we've got major tailwinds behind us. But I agree with Lydia and Monique. If we don't step up and take advantage of those tailwinds, I think the headwinds from the status quo are strong. And it's going to be really easy for us to miss the moment and just tweak at the margins or make some marginal change when the opportunity we have right now is to totally transform the way we think about work and learning forever. And so I think Monique's right. I think it totally depends on the innovators in this space, those that aren't here, the people that are going to step up, form the coalitions, build the movements, create the new models, and drive culture change that will lead us to where I think we all want to go.
So I'm looking at our clock here, and we've got to actually wrap up, and we want to make sure we get you all out on time. So final question, what is giving you hope in this moment as we look to make the transformational change we seek to make? We'll go Lydia, Ryan, and Monique.
Ooh, speed round. What gives me hope? What gives me hope is that I hear people from every sector talking about it, not just business sector, but I hear the nonprofit sector, academics, government representatives, policymakers. I hear all the people who have what it takes to move the system, thinking about it and working on it. It isn't like we're talking about it as employers and we've got to convince everybody else. Or it's only people who are working doing direct service and they're saying everyone else needs to come with us. I feel the momentum, and I think we're either going to take advantage of it and we're all going to do our part to do the right thing and move it forward, or we're going to miss the moment.
Yeah, so I think it's groups like this. I think it's feeling the energy at a place like Horizons, at ASU GSV, at these, where these groups of people, you feel the groundswell of innovation. It seems like we're closer to a tipping point than we've ever been before. And I actually think we can do it. And I don't think I would have said that a year or two ago.
No.
I just don't think I would have said that. So that gives me hope. It's the inspiring stories and examples and models and innovations that you see at a place like Horizons that give you this snapshot that seem to indicate that we can actually pull this off.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in workforce development for some time, and I think what's giving me hope is when I first started, it was workers seemed to be a problem to be solved, right? It was a deficits orientation. It was a charitable endeavor. And I think today, this is a business imperative, and workers are seen as assets, not just to companies, but to communities and to our economy. So that's what's really giving me hope. I feel like the tone and tenor has completely changed, and now we just have to get to work.
I hope you can all feel it. We are in a moment, and it's going to require all of us and all of our action. Thank you for highlighting what you're seeing from where you sit. I'm excited about this. Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Thank you.